The alarms screamed through the command center like dying animals. Commander Hoon stood at the observation window, watching his world burn. Red beams of energy cut through the atmosphere of Prime, turning cities into ash. His hands gripped the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. "Sir, the eastern defense grid has fallen," a young officer reported, his voice shaking. "They're targeting the civilian evacuation ships now." Hoon closed his eyes. 300 years of peace gone in 3 days. The Empire had built a civilization on art, science, and philosophy. They had no weapons, no armies, no concept of true war. When the Dominion arrived with their massive war fleets, demanding submission or death, they had nothing to fight back with. "How many ships did we lose?" Hoon asked. 17 in the last hour, sir. Over 40,000 civilians." The number hit Hoon like a physical blow. He had been a navigator before this war, mapping peaceful trade routes between star systems. Now he commanded the last defense forces of a dying empire. He wore the uniform because someone had to, not because he knew how to fight. The door to the command center opened. Walked in, carrying a data tablet against her chest like a shield. She was the High Council's chief scientist, brilliant but always nervous. Today, she looked terrified. "Commander, I need to speak with you," said quietly. "In private." Hoon followed her to a small office away from the chaos, sealed the door, and activated a privacy field. The sounds of the dying world outside became muffled. "I found something," said. "Something that might save us or damn us completely." She placed her tablet on the desk. The screen showed an ancient symbol, one that Hoon had only seen in history books. The mark of the precursors, the civilization that had ruled the galaxy millions of years ago before vanishing without a trace. "The Forbidden Archive," Hoon whispered. "That's sealed by council order. Opening it is a crime punishable by—" "By what?" interrupted. "Execution. Look outside, Hoon. We're all going to die anyway. The fleet will be here in 6 hours. They'll destroy our home world just like they destroyed the colonies." Hoon stared at the symbol. Every child learned about the Forbidden Archive in school. The precursors had left behind vast libraries of knowledge scattered across the galaxy. Most were open to study, filled with amazing technology and wisdom. But some archives were sealed with dire warnings. The Forbidden Archive on Prime was one of them. "What's in there?" Hoon asked. "Information about a species," said. "A species so dangerous that the precursors sealed away all data about them. Not because they were evil, but because they were unpredictable. The precursors were terrified of them." "What species?" His hand shook as she swiped through data on her tablet. "They called themselves humans. The precursors encountered them in a distant part of the galaxy called the Sol system. From what little information leaked into the public archives, humans were strange. Not the strongest species, not the longest lived. But they survived things that should have killed them. They never gave up, never surrendered, even when they had no chance of winning." Hoon felt a chill run down his spine. The precursors feared them. "The precursors quarantined their entire region of space," said. "They built a barrier around the Sol system and forbade anyone from making contact. The records say that humans were too dangerous to engage with, too unpredictable to understand. They had a capacity for violence that frightened even the precursors." "Then why would we want to contact them?" Met his eyes. "Because the records also say that humans protected those weaker than themselves, that they fought against oppression and tyranny, that when someone asked them for help, they often said yes, even when it cost them everything." Hoon looked at the data scrolling across the tablet. Reports from precursor observers who had watched humanity from afar. Tales of humans surviving ice ages on their planet, of wars that should have destroyed them but only made them stronger. Stories of humans venturing into space in primitive metal ships, exploring the unknown with nothing but curiosity and courage. "The precursors have been gone for 1,000,000 years," Hoon said. "Even if humans still exist, they might have changed. They might not care about us. They might be just as cruel as the— I know, admitted. But we're out of options. The council won't listen to my proposal. They think I'm insane. That's why I came to you. What do you want me to do? Help me open the archive, said. Help me send a message to the human quarantine zone. If they're still there, if they're still alive, maybe they'll answer. Maybe they'll help. Hoon walked to the window. Outside, another explosion lit up the sky, more ships falling, more people dying. His people were pacifists facing an enemy that lived for conquest. They had no chance. If the council finds out, they'll arrest us, Hoon said. If we do nothing, there won't be a council to arrest anyone. Hoon made his decision. How long will it take? 2 hours to break the archive seals. Another hour to prepare and send the message. That will arrive before we know if anyone received it. Then we better hurry. They moved quickly through the empty corridors of the research facility. Most people had evacuated to the bunkers or fled to the remaining ships. The archive chamber was deep underground, protected by layers of security that bypassed with codes she had stolen from the council database. The chamber was vast and dark. In the center stood a crystalline structure pulsing with a faint blue light, the precursor archive, thousands of years old, untouched, waiting. Connected her equipment to the crystal. Symbols appeared in the air, languages dead for eons. She worked with steady hands, translating and decoding. Hoon stood guard at the door, listening to the distant sounds of war. I'm in, said finally. Hoon, come see this. He approached the crystal. Images flooded the air around them. Humans walking on 2 legs, shorter than but muscular. They looked fragile, but their eyes held something fierce. Videos showed them fighting with primitive weapons, building cities, launching themselves into space on pillars of fire. One file showed humans in war. They fought with strategy and cunning, using the environment, creating traps, turning weaknesses into strengths. They never attacked with overwhelming force. They attacked with overwhelming intelligence. They're not monsters, Hoon said softly. They're survivors. Yes, agreed. And maybe that's exactly what we need. She programmed the message carefully, a mathematical sequence that any space-faring species would recognize, coordinates of their system, a plea for help in universal symbols, and beneath it all, a simple truth: we are dying, please answer. Activated the transmitter. The message shot out across the galaxy, faster than light, toward a region of space that had been silent for 1,000,000 years. Now we wait, said. Now we pray, Hoon corrected. Above them, the fleet entered orbit. The real attack was about to begin. And somewhere in the darkness of space, a message traveled to a species that legends said could not be killed, could not be beaten, and would not abandon those who asked for help. If the legends were true, the galaxy was about to change forever. Lieutenant Commander Jin was drinking his 3rd coffee of the night shift when the console started screaming. He jumped, spilling hot liquid across his uniform, and stared at the screen in disbelief. No way, he muttered. No possible way. He was stationed at Luna Base 3, monitoring the deep space sensor arrays that watched the outer edges of the Sol system. For 15 years he had sat at this desk. For 15 years nothing interesting had ever happened. Space was empty and silent. Humanity was alone. Until now. The signal was clear, mathematical, and definitely artificial. It came from outside the Sol system, from a direction that should have been empty. Jin's hands shook as he ran the analysis again. Same result. Someone out there was trying to talk to humanity. He reached for the emergency comm line. Sir, this is Luna 3. I have a priority alert. I need to speak with command immediately. Within an hour, every defense station around Earth was on full alert. Within 2 hours, the message had been decoded. Within 3 hours, Captain was standing in the briefing room of the warship Indomitable, staring at the same data that had made Jin spill his coffee. "They're asking for help," said Minyu, the ship's cultural specialist. He was young but spoke 14 languages and had 3 degrees in xenobiology. The mathematical sequences are basic but clear. Their system is under attack. They're facing extinction. "Could be a trap," said So-young, the weapons officer. She was small but fierce with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "We don't know anything about whoever sent this. Could be bait to lure us out." "Could be," agreed the chief engineer. He was older than the rest, with gray hair and steady hands. "But the energy signature on this message is unlike anything we've ever seen. The technology that sent this is thousands of years ahead of ours." Captain studied the star charts. She was 35, calm under pressure, and had commanded the Indomitable for 2 years. The ship was experimental, built with humanity's best technology, designed for long-range exploration. They had been preparing for humanity's first journey beyond the Sol system. Apparently, someone else had decided to make first contact instead. "The message came from this system here," pointed at the display. 40 light-years away. If we use the jump drive, we can be there in 6 hours. "Sir, we should wait for orders from Earth Command," said So-young. "This is first contact. We need authorization." "By the time Earth Command debates and authorizes, whoever sent this message will be dead," said. She looked at her crew. "They reached out to us. They asked for help. That says something about them." "It says they're desperate," So-young countered. "Desperate people do dangerous things." Minyu cleared his throat. "Actually, I've been analyzing the message structure. It's not just a call for help. Look at this section here." He pulled up a new display. "These symbols represent concepts like peace, cooperation, and protection of innocence. They're telling us something about themselves. They're saying they're the victims. Or they want us to think they are," So-young said. Made her decision. "Prepare the jump drive. So-young, ready all weapons but keep them powered down. Minyu, prepare first contact protocols. We're going." "Captain, Earth Command won't like this," So-young warned. "Earth Command isn't watching someone die 40 light-years away," replied. "We are. Prepare the ship." The Indomitable was beautiful in a brutal way. Sleek hull, powerful engines, and weapons that had never been fired in anger. Humanity had built it after discovering ancient ruins on Mars that proved they weren't alone in the universe. For 50 years, humanity had wondered when they would meet their neighbors. Now they were about to find out. The jump drive engaged. Space twisted around the ship. Reality bent and folded. For 6 hours, the Indomitable traveled faster than light, crossing distances that would have taken centuries at normal speeds. When they emerged, they found hell. "Oh God," Minyu whispered. The view screen showed a star system full of debris and death. Massive warships, each 10 times the size of the Indomitable, were firing on planets and orbital stations. Explosions bloomed silently in the void. Smaller ships, clearly unarmed, tried to flee and were destroyed one by one. "I'm picking up thousands of life signs on those civilian ships," reported, his voice tight. "They're massacring them." "Identify the attacking fleet," ordered. "Working on it," Minyu said. "Their hull markings show a hierarchical military structure. Scanning their communication channels now. They're speaking about cleansing and purification. This isn't a war, Captain, it's genocide." So-young's jaw clenched. "Should I target their weapons?" "Not yet," said. She watched the slaughter with cold eyes. "Minyu, can you identify the species being attacked?" "Yes, Captain. They match the energy signature of the message we received. They're the ones who called for help." "And the attackers?" "Unknown species, but their tactics are straightforward. Overwhelming force, no subtlety. They're not interested in negotiation." Leaned back in her chair. She had studied military history at the academy. She had read about Earth's wars, about humanity's long and bloody path to peace. She knew what happened when bullies thought they could act without consequences. "Open a channel to both sides," she ordered. "Captain," Minyu looked surprised. "Do it, Broadcast on all frequencies. The channel opened, spoke clearly and calmly. This is Captain of the Earth vessel Indomitable. To the victims, we received your message. We're here to help. To the attacking forces, you will cease fire immediately and withdraw from this system. For a moment there was silence. Then laughter came over the channel, deep and harsh. A voice spoke in a language the ship's computer translated. A single tiny ship threatens the Dominion. You are either brave or stupid little aliens. We conquer, we cleanse, we rule. If you interfere, we will destroy you as easily as we destroy these pathetic creatures. Final warning said, cease fire and withdraw. More laughter. Then the lead warship turned its massive weapons toward the Indomitable. They're targeting us, So Young reported. I can see that, said calmly. Should I return fire? Not yet. The ship fired. A beam of red energy lanced through space, enough power to vaporize a city. The Indomitable twisted in space, dodging with impossible grace. The beam missed by meters. Deploy the decoys, ordered, all of them. All of them, Captain, that's. All of them. The engineer activated the system. Thousands of small drones shot from the Indomitable's hull, each one broadcasting an energy signature identical to the main ship. Within seconds, the sensors showed not one human ship but thousands, appearing all around them. What is this trickery? The commander roared. Smiled without humor. This is how humans fight. We don't face overwhelming force head-on. We make you think you're facing overwhelming force instead. Mean, send a message to the victims. Tell them help has arrived. Tell them to get their civilians to safety. Yes, Captain. So Young, I want precision strikes on the communication arrays. Don't destroy their ships, just blind them. With pleasure, Captain. The Indomitable moved through the chaos like a ghost. So Young's targeting was perfect. Small, precise bursts of energy disabled sensors and communication systems without destroying the ships themselves. The fleet panicked, firing at decoys, losing coordination. They're breaking formation, reported. They can't tell which targets are real. Good, said. Keep them confused. I want you to hack into their communication network. Feed them false data. Make them think there's a whole fleet of human ships out here. Grinned. I can do that. Within minutes, the fleet was in chaos. They fired on their own decoys, scattered their forces, and sent confused messages to each other. The Indomitable hadn't destroyed a single ship, but they were defeating themselves. On the planet below, Hoon and watched in amazement from their bunker. The impossible was happening. One small ship was fighting an entire fleet and winning without firing a single killing shot. What are they doing? Whispered. They're thinking, Hoon said, wonder in his voice. They're not stronger than they're smarter. A message came through on the emergency channel, a woman's voice speaking in their language with a strange accent. This is Captain of Earth. Your message reached us. Hold on, we're here to help. For the first time in days, Hoon felt hope. Commander of the Dominion had conquered 47 star systems in his career. He was a decorated warrior, feared across the galaxy, unstoppable in battle. His fleet had never retreated, never failed, never shown mercy. Now he stared at his tactical display and felt something he had not experienced in 20 years. Confusion. Report, he barked at his officers. Sir, we're detecting 3,000 enemy contacts. No, wait, 4,000, 5,000, they're everywhere. The sensor officer's voice cracked with panic. That's impossible. We saw one ship arrive, one small ship. Yes, sir, but now. An explosion rocked the flagship. Not a hull breach, but enough to rattle the crew. Red warning lights flashed across the command deck. What hit us? Demanded. Unknown weapon type, sir. It disabled our long-range communications array. We can't contact the fleet. Felt anger rise in his throat. One ship. These humans arrived with one ship, and now his entire fleet was in chaos. His subordinate commanders were sending contradictory reports, claiming to be under attack from multiple directions, requesting reinforcements, firing at targets that disappeared before weapons could lock on. "This is cowardice," roared. "They hide behind tricks and deception. They have no honor." On the Indomitable, Minu listened to his transmission and laughed quietly. "He thinks we're being dishonorable. Captain, should I explain to him that we don't care?" "No need," replied. "Let him think what he wants. So Young, status on the civilian evacuation. The victims have 70% of their civilians in the bunkers now. The rest are boarding the last transport ships." "Then we buy them more time," studied her tactical display. "The fleet was scattered but not defeated. I need you to access one of those disabled ships. Can you hack their systems?" The engineer's fingers flew across his console. "Their cybersecurity is primitive, Captain. Give me 5 minutes." "You have 3. Worked in focused silence. The rest of the bridge crew watched as he penetrated layer after layer of security. When he finally broke through, he whistled softly. "Captain, I'm in their tactical network. I can see their fleet positions, orders, everything." "Can you send false information?" "Can I?" grinned. "Watch this." He began feeding fabricated data into the network. False sensor readings showing massive human warships approaching from multiple directions. Fake distress calls from vessels claiming they were under attack. Altered position data that made the ships think their allies were actually enemies. The fleet descended into chaos. Ships fired on their own allies. Commanders issued contradictory orders. The careful formation that had spent hours arranging fell apart. On Prime, worked frantically to evacuate the last civilians while Hoon coordinated with the human ship. A communication channel had been established, and Hoon found himself talking directly to Captain. "Your tactics are remarkable," Hoon said, his voice filled with awe. "You're not destroying them, you're making them destroy themselves." "That's the idea," replied. "My species learned a long time ago that the best way to win a fight is to make the enemy think they've already lost. Confusion is a weapon. Fear is a weapon. We use psychology as much as we use firepower." "But why help us? You don't know us, we're strangers." There was a pause. When spoke again, her voice was softer. "On my planet, we have a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. You asked for help. Someone was trying to exterminate you. What else should we do? Join the conversation. Your precursors sealed your system away. They wrote warnings about your species. They said you were dangerous." "We are dangerous," Minu said, joining the channel. "But dangerous to who is the important question. We're dangerous to bullies and tyrants. We're dangerous to those who commit genocide. Are you those things?" "No," said quickly. "We're a peaceful people." "Then you have nothing to fear from us," Minu said. "The precursors were afraid because they didn't understand. They saw our capacity for violence and assumed we were monsters. They never stayed long enough to see that we only use that violence to protect, not to conquer." Hoon watched another ship flee from a decoy, wasting ammunition on an empty target. "How did your species learn to fight like this?" "Necessity," answered. "We come from a harsh world. Ice ages, diseases, predators, natural disasters. We were never the strongest or fastest creatures on our planet. We survived by being clever. When we developed civilization, we fought wars against each other. Terrible wars that taught us hard lessons." "What lessons?" asked. "That overwhelming force isn't always the answer. That understanding your enemy is more important than outgunning them. That sometimes the winner isn't the one with the biggest army, but the one who makes the fewest mistakes." An alert sounded on the Indomitable. So Young's voice was tense. "Captain, the flagship is moving. It's breaking away from the fleet, heading toward the planet." His expression hardened. "What's it doing?" "Scanning." Captain, it's targeting the civilian bunkers, is trying to draw us into a direct fight. Hoon's blood went cold. Those bunkers hold 3 million people. Our shields won't hold against a direct assault from that ship. Was silent for a moment, thinking. Then she spoke, and her voice carried a weight that made everyone on both ships pay attention. Menu, open a direct channel to video and audio. Captain, are you sure? Do it. The channel opened. Commander appeared on screen, tall and armored, with eyes that burned with fury. Ah, the human commander, finally brave enough to show your face. Your tricks end now. Surrender or I will massacre every living thing on that planet. Stared at him without blinking. You're making a mistake. Am I? I have the most powerful warship in this system pointed at helpless civilians. You have one small ship and an army of fake signals. The mathematics are simple. You don't understand, said, and now there was something cold in her voice, something that made even hesitate. Up until this moment, we've been playing. We've been using psychological warfare because we prefer not to kill, but you're about to cross a line that my species will not tolerate. What line? Targeting civilians deliberately, threatening innocents to force surrender. On my world, we have a word for what you're doing. We call it a war crime, and humans do not forgive war crimes. Laughed, but it sounded forced. You think your moral outrage frightens me. I'm giving you one chance, said. Power down your weapons, withdraw from this system. If you do that, you get to live. And if I don't? Then we stop playing. Sneered, I will enjoy watching you fail, human. He cut the communication. On the Indomitable's bridge, the mood changed. So Young checked her weapons, powered up systems that had been kept dormant. Minu sealed his station and strapped in. Captain, So Young asked quietly. Took a deep breath. Call back all decoys. Drop the deception protocols. Power up the main weapons. If fires on those civilians, we end this. Sir, we're one ship against his flagship, in a straight fight. We won't fight straight, said. We'll fight human. On Prime, Hoon listened with growing dread. Captain, you can't take on that ship alone. It's too powerful. Watch us, replied. Gave the order. His flagship's main cannon powered up, a weapon designed to crack planets. Energy built up, bright and terrible. He aimed at the largest civilian bunker and prepared to fire. The Indomitable moved. It dropped all pretense of stealth. All the decoys shut down. The tiny ship accelerated directly toward the massive flagship, and for the first time, it revealed what it truly was. Had been holding back their experimental weapons, waiting for this moment. Now he unleashed them. Rail guns that fired projectiles at a fraction of light speed. Plasma weapons that could melt through any known armor. And missiles. Not energy weapons. Physical missiles that carried something they had never encountered. Nuclear warheads. What are those? Shouted as his sensors screamed warnings. His officers scrambled to respond, but they had never seen weapons like this. They used energy weapons exclusively, sophisticated and clean. These human weapons were primitive, brutal, and devastatingly effective. The first rail gun round punched through the flagship's shields as if they didn't exist. Solid matter moving at relativistic speeds cared nothing for energy barriers. It tore a hole through the ship's outer hull. The plasma lance followed, melting through internal structures. Then the missiles hit. The nuclear explosions bloomed in the void, raw, destructive force that the shields were never designed to handle. Radiation flooded through the damaged sections. The flagship shuddered and began to list. Stared in horror at his tactical display. What are these weapons? Minu's voice came over the channel, calm and educational. On our planet, we developed nuclear weapons before we left our home system. We used them in war. We know how terrible they are. We stopped using them against each other, but we never forgot how to make them. And in space, they're very effective. The flagship's main cannon went dark. Power systems failed across the ship, realized with dawning horror that his ship was dying. His voice was cold. You had your chance, you chose wrong. The flagship drifted through space, half its systems offline, emergency lights flickering across its wounded hull. Inside, Commander pulled himself from the wreckage of his command chair. Blood ran from a cut above his eye. Around him, his crew scrambled to contain fires and seal hull breaches. "Damage report," he croaked. "Main weapons offline, shields at 15%, life support failing in sections 7 through 12. Sir, we're dead in space." His second officer's voice shook. "What did they hit us with?" Didn't answer. He was staring at the tactical display, at the small human ship that had just crippled the pride of the fleet. One ship. One impossibly small ship. On the Indomitable, So-Young monitored the disabled flagship. "Their weapons are down, Captain. They're venting atmosphere. Should I finish them?" Sat in her command chair, face hard. "No. Broadcast the footage to the rest of their fleet." Activated the communication systems. Every ship in the system received the same transmission. Video of their flagship being torn apart in seconds. Images of the damage, the casualties, the complete and utter defeat of their most powerful vessel. Then's voice broadcast to every ship. "This is Captain of Earth. You came to this system to commit genocide. You targeted civilians. You laughed when asked to stop. This is what happens when you cross that line. This is what humans do to those who murder the innocent." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Your flagship still has survivors. We could destroy it completely. We could hunt down every one of your ships and do the same, but we won't. We're not like you. We don't kill without cause. So here is what happens next. You have 1 hour to collect your wounded from that flagship and retreat from this system. If you're not gone in 60 minutes, we stop being merciful." The fleet broke. Ships that had come to conquer now scrambled to flee. They abandoned their attack positions, collected their damaged flagship's escape pods, and jumped to hyperspace as fast as their engines could charge. Within 40 minutes, the last vessel was gone. Silence fell over the system. After 3 days of constant bombardment, the quiet was almost painful. On Prime, Hoon stood in the command center, staring at empty screens. "They're gone. They're actually gone." Leaned against a console, exhausted. "The humans did it. One ship. They saved us." But Hoon felt something more than relief. He felt fear. He had watched the Indomitable fight, first with clever tactics and deception, almost playful in its manipulation of the. Then, when had threatened civilians, he had seen the humans transform. In seconds, they had gone from tricksters to executioners, unleashing weapons of terrible power without hesitation. He said quietly, "What did we summon?" She understood his fear. A species that could destroy us as easily as they destroyed that ship. A communication request came through. Captain's image appeared on the screen. She looked tired but calm. "Commander Hoon, scientist, are your people safe?" "Yes," Hoon said. "Thanks to you, Captain, we owe you a debt we can never repay." "You don't owe us anything," replied. "You asked for help, we helped. That's what civilized species should do." "But you're so powerful," said, and Hoon heard the tremor in her voice. "Those weapons, that speed, that tactical brilliance, you could conquer this entire region of space if you wanted to." Was quiet for a moment. "Yes, we could. Do you want to know why we won't?" "Please," Hoon said. Turned to someone off screen. "Minyu, will you explain? You're better with words than I am." Minyu appeared, the young cultural specialist with kind eyes. "Commander, scientist, I want to tell you about human history. On our world, we spent thousands of years fighting each other. Humans killed humans over territory, resources, beliefs, and sometimes just because we could. We developed weapons of terrible power. We came very close to destroying ourselves multiple times." He brought up images on the screen. Ruined cities, memorials to millions of dead, nuclear wasteland. "We learned hard lessons. We learned that power without restraint leads to horror, that violence for its own sake is a path to extinction. About 300 years ago, we almost destroyed our world in a nuclear war. We survived barely. After that, we changed. How asked? We created laws, Minyu said. Not just laws for individuals, but laws for war itself. Rules about what was acceptable and what was not. Targeting civilians became our deepest taboo. Using certain weapons became forbidden. We agreed as a species that some things were too terrible to do, even to our enemies. But you used nuclear weapons today, Hoon pointed out. In space, against a military target that was about to commit genocide, said, returning to the screen. Not against cities, not against civilians. We make distinctions. That's what separates us from them. So Young joined the conversation. Commander, I want to be honest with you. When we first arrived and saw what was happening, part of me wanted to destroy every ship immediately. I was angry, but Captain made us wait. She tried deception first, psychological warfare, anything to avoid killing. It was only when targeted your civilians that she gave the order to use lethal force. Why? Hoon asked. If you knew you could win easily, why not just destroy them immediately? Because every life matters, said simply. Even lives. There are enemies, but they're still living beings with families and dreams. We only kill when we have no other choice. That's what the precursors didn't understand about us. Yes, humans are dangerous. Yes, we're capable of terrible violence, but we choose when to use it. We control it. We don't let it control us. His voice came through. Captain, I've been monitoring broadcasts from nearby systems. News of this battle is spreading fast. Other species know about us now, about Earth, about humans. Let them know, said. Maybe it will make others think twice before trying what they tried. Hoon took a breath. Captain, I have to ask. The precursors quarantined your system. They feared you. After seeing what you can do, I understand why. What's to stop you from becoming conquerors yourselves? Met his eyes. Us. We stop ourselves. Every ship in our fleet has rules of engagement. Every captain swears an oath to protect the innocent and only use force in defense. We have systems of checks and balances. We learned from our mistakes. But what if one of your captains goes rogue? What if someone decides they want to use that power for themselves? Then the rest of us stop them, So Young said firmly. We police ourselves. We have to. We know what we're capable of. That's why we're so careful. Minyu leaned forward. Commander, humans are not perfect. We have criminals and tyrants just like any species. But as a civilization, we've agreed on certain principles. Don't target the innocent. Don't commit genocide. Don't conquer for conquest's sake. Don't torture or enslave. These are our lines. When they crossed them, we responded. If a human ever crosses them, we'll respond the same way. Spoke up. The precursors wrote that you were unpredictable, that you couldn't be controlled or understood. That's true, admitted. We're creative. We improvise. We find solutions that others might not see. That probably scared the precursors because they liked order and predictability. But unpredictable doesn't mean evil. It just means we think differently. Hoon felt some of his fear ease. You came when we called. You risked yourselves for strangers. You showed mercy to enemies who showed you none. That says something about your character. It says we remember our history, said. We remember what it's like to be helpless, to face overwhelming force, to cry out for help and hear only silence. We decided as a species that we would never ignore that cry, not when we have the power to answer it. An alert sounded on the Indomitable, checked his screens. Captain, I'm detecting ships gathering at the edge of the system. They're not coming back in, but they're watching. Survived then, So Young said. He'll be planning revenge. Let him plan, said. We'll be ready. For now, let's focus on helping these people rebuild. She looked at Hoon and, we're going to stay for a while if that's okay with you. Help you repair your defenses. Maybe share some technology. And we'd like to learn about your people, your culture. First contact should be more than just a battle. Hoon felt emotion well up in his chest. You're really going to help us, even though we can't offer you anything in return. Minyu smiled. You already did offer us something, you trusted us. You called out to strangers and hoped they were good. That takes courage, that deserves respect. We should meet in person, your people and mine. We have a lot to talk about. And maybe when this is all over, Earth and can be allies, friends even. I would like that, said softly. So would I, Hoon agreed. Welcome to our system, humans, and thank you for everything. Thank us by surviving, said. By rebuilding, by living the peaceful life you've chosen. That's the best thanks we could receive. 3 months after the battle, the galaxy was a different place. News had spread like wildfire. A species called humans had emerged from the quarantined Sol system. They had intervened in the genocide. They had defeated a superior force using tactics that no one had seen before, and they had shown mercy to their defeated enemies. Every government, every empire, every scattered colony world was talking about Earth. On Prime, reconstruction was. The cities that had burned were being rebuilt with help from human engineers, had trained technicians in new construction methods. So Young had helped establish a proper defense network. Minyu had opened a cultural exchange center wherein humans learned about each other. In the High Council chamber, Hoon stood before the assembled leaders, wearing the uniform of a commander once more. Beside him stood Captain, now promoted to Admiral of Earth's first contact fleet. The alliance treaty is ready for signing, the council leader announced. She was old, with silver skin and ancient eyes. And Earth will be formal allies. We will share technology, culture, and most importantly, mutual defense. Hoon watched as signed the document with a simple stylus. Then he signed as well. 3 months ago, he had been commanding the desperate last defense of a dying world. Now he was signing a treaty with beings from across the galaxy. There is one more matter, the council leader said. We have received communications from 17 other species. All of them wish to speak with Earth. All of them wish to learn more about humans. 17 looked surprised. That many. More arrive every day, said. She had been appointed as representative to Earth. Some are curious. Some are afraid. Some want to form alliances. A few want to test themselves against you. Test us, frowned. Species who think they can beat your tactics, Hoon explained. Warriors who want to prove that human strategies can be defeated. Great, So Young muttered from her place behind. Just what we need, more fights. But was thinking, maybe that's not a bad thing. If people want to test us, let them. But in simulations, not real battles, war games, training exercises, we can teach our tactics while learning theirs. Would you do that? The council leader asked. Share your military knowledge. Why not? Said. If everyone knows our tricks, we'll have to come up with new ones. And maybe if everyone fights smarter instead of just harder, fewer people will die in future conflicts. A chime sounded. Jin's face appeared on the communication screen. He was still stationed at Luna Base 3, now serving as Earth's communication center with the wider galaxy. Admiral, I have an urgent message from the Dominion. The mood in the room changed instantly. Hoon's hand went to his sidearm. So Young stepped forward, ready for orders. Put it through, said calmly. Commander appeared on the screen. He looked different than before. Thinner, older. His uniform bore no decorations now. Admiral Commander Hoon, I request permission to speak. You have 30 seconds, said coldly. I come bearing a message from the High Command, said. His voice lacked its former arrogance. After our defeat there was chaos. Some wanted revenge. Some wanted to pretend it never happened. But others, like myself, began to ask questions. Why did we lose? Why were our tactics so easily defeated? You lost because you relied on force without thought, So Young said bluntly. You expected fear to win battles. Yes, agreed, surprising everyone. We did. For generations that approach worked. We conquered weak species who couldn't fight back. We became arrogant. Then we met humans. You weren't stronger than us, but you won anyway. You taught us a lesson we badly needed." "What lesson?" Hoon asked. "That strength without wisdom is just violence. That there are beings in this galaxy we cannot bully. That we need to change or die." Looked directly at. "I am here to request a formal ceasefire between the Dominion and Earth, and to ask if you would be willing to teach us." "Teach you what?" "How to fight like you do, how to think like you do, how to be better than we are." Exchanged glances with Hoon. "You understand that if we teach you, we'll also teach everyone else. We won't give you an exclusive advantage." "I understand, but maybe that's better. Maybe if everyone fights smarter, there will be less fighting overall." "Maybe," said. "I'll need to discuss this with my government, but understand this. If we agree and if you betray that trust, if you use what we teach to harm innocents, we will come for you. And next time we won't show mercy." "I understand, Admiral," bowed his head. "I will await your decision." The communication ended. The room was silent for a moment. "Can we trust them?" the council leader asked. "Probably not entirely," admitted. "But we can verify, we can monitor, and if they're genuinely trying to change, we should support that. People deserve the chance to be better than they were." Hoon smiled slightly. "Very human philosophy." "Is it?" Looked at him. "You believe the same thing. That's why you built a civilization on peace. You just forgot that sometimes peace needs to be defended with force." Entered the chamber carrying a data pad. She looked excited. "Hoon, you need to see this. I've been working with Minu to translate more of the precursor archive." She activated a holographic display. Ancient text appeared, slowly translating into modern language. "This is a precursor historical record," explained. "It describes why they sealed Earth. Listen to this. We encountered a species unlike any other, not because of their technology or physical abilities, but because of their spirit. They faced extinction multiple times, yet always survived. They fought wars among themselves, yet always rebuilt. They created weapons that could destroy their world, yet chose not to use them." The text continued. "We debated for many cycles. Some wanted to make contact to learn from them. Others feared what they could become. In the end, we chose isolation, not to protect ourselves from humans, but to protect humans from us." "Protect humans from them?" Hoon looked confused. Minu appeared in the doorway, reading from his own data pad. "We precursors had become stagnant, afraid, unwilling to take risks. We saw in humanity what we had lost. They reminded us of our own younger days when we explored bravely and fought for justice. We feared that contact would corrupt them, make them like us. Or worse, that they would show us how far we had fallen." Stared at the text. "They didn't quarantine us because we were dangerous to them. They did it because we reminded them of their failures. And because they knew that one day you would be needed," said softly. "Look at this last section. If the galaxy ever faces darkness we cannot defeat, perhaps the humans will be ready. Perhaps their fire, their refusal to surrender, their strange mix of compassion and ferocity will be what saves everyone. We leave this archive as a beacon, hoping that when the time comes, someone will be brave enough to call them." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the weight of those words. "We were the beacon," Hoon said. When we were desperate, we lit it, and you came." "And now everything changes," the council leader said. "Humans are no longer isolated. Earth is part of the galactic community. What will you do with this responsibility?" Thought carefully before answering. "We'll do what we've always done. We'll adapt. We'll learn. We'll help those who need it. We'll defend those who can't defend themselves. And we'll make mistakes, probably a lot of them because we're not perfect. But we'll try to be better tomorrow than we are today." "That's all anyone can ask," the council leader said. Over the next few weeks, more species made contact with Earth. The small trading federation called the Wanted to establish trade routes. A scientific collective called the Wanted to exchange knowledge. Even a few former colonies, breaking away from the Dominion, asked for Earth's help in establishing independence. Jin coordinated all of it from Luna Base, no longer a lonely outpost but the busiest communication hub in human space. He worked with a team of specialists, learning languages, understanding cultures, building relationships. And his engineering corps traveled to a dozen worlds, sharing human technology and learning alien techniques. They found that humanity wasn't always the most advanced, but their creativity allowed them to combine ideas in new ways. So-young established the first joint military academy, where humans and aliens trained together. She was tough on everyone equally, earning respect even from species who had initially doubted that humans could teach them anything. On Earth, humanity debated its new role. Some wanted to spread human influence across the galaxy. Others wanted to return to isolation. But most agreed with this approach. Be part of the community, help where needed, but don't try to control everything. Back on Prime, Hoon stood in the observation dome that overlooked the rebuilt capital city. Human and children played together in the parks below. Ships from a dozen worlds came and went from the orbital port. "Do you regret it?" asked, opening the archive, calling the humans. Hoon thought about the question. He remembered the terror of those first days, the fear when he saw what humans could do, the worry about what they might become. But he also remembered words, Minyu's kindness, So-young's dedication, his patience, and most of all, he remembered that they had come when called. They had risked themselves for strangers. "No," he said finally, "I don't regret it. The precursors were wrong to isolate them. Humanity belongs in the galaxy. We just had to be brave enough to invite them." "And what happens now?" "Now," Hoon smiled, "now we see what we can build together. Humans and whoever else wants to join us. A galaxy where strength protects instead of conquers, where intelligence is used to solve problems instead of create them, where different species work together instead of fighting." "That sounds like an impossible dream," said. "Maybe," Hoon agreed. "But humans taught me something. They survived impossible odds. They built peace after terrible wars. They came to help when anyone reasonable would have stayed home. If they can do all that, maybe impossible dreams aren't so impossible after all." Far out in space, the Indomitable patrolled the border regions, watching for threats, making contact with new species, showing the galaxy what humanity stood for. Sat in her command chair, reading reports and planning for the future. A message came through from Earth Command. They were building more ships, training more crews, preparing to explore deeper into the galaxy. They asked what humanity should do next. She thought about the precursors who had become stagnant and afraid. She thought about the who had relied on force and cruelty. She thought about the who had chosen peace but forgotten how to defend it. Then she typed her response. "We explore, we learn, we help those in need. We make friends with those willing. We defend against those who threaten peace. We stay true to what makes us human, and we never ever give up." It was a simple answer, but humans had always preferred simple truths over complicated lies. The galaxy had feared humans once. Now they were learning a different truth. Humans were dangerous, yes, but dangerous to the right things, to tyranny, to genocide, to those who preyed on the weak. And that made all the difference. Somewhere in the depths of space, old precursor archives activated automatically, triggered by humanity's emergence. Messages began broadcasting to distant regions, to species that had not yet heard the news. The messages were simple: the quarantine is ended. Humanity has awakened. The galaxy will never be the same. And they were right.